But sooner or later, people had to turn the radio off. They had to leave the movie theater. And when they did, the Depression was still there, waiting. It advanced upon the farmers of the South and Midwest in terrifying storms of dry dust. It was one of the worst droughts in American history. The land itself was blowing away.
It looked like a tornado coming, big black clouds of dust coming across the desert there. It was terrible. You couldn't breathe. You'd put something over your face, a handkerchief, and try to breathe through it, and you spit out mud balls.
25,000 square miles of farmland became known as the Dust Bowl. For farmers who'd been suffering through their own economic crisis since the 1920s, it was the final blow. Leaving their farmhouses and barns to rot, they fled westward for the Promised Land, California. Dust-weary farmers joined millions of other penniless people who were wandering the country looking for a second chance. The transportation of choice was the freight train. Riding the rails was dangerous. The trains were patrolled by vicious guards. But the price was right.
When they're going to leave, they give you the highball, and that's 2 shorts and a long. Man, you better get ready then, because he's pulling out.
Trouble lies in sightless pools along the way I've taken. Sightless windows stare the empty street. No love beckons me save that which I've forsaken, and the anguish of my solitude is sweet.
The actor Robert Mitchum wrote his poem in 1932 when he was just another teenager in search of salvation.
At the time, there were so many people on the train that the train crew couldn't walk the tops. I met former bankers, college professors, all sorts of people riding freight trains. A lot of them didn't really have a destination. They were just trying to get away from where they were.
But everywhere they got to seemed just as hopeless as the place they'd left behind.
Numbers of towns would arrest those people who came there. There was particular concern about what were called the wild boys of the road.
President Hoover sent undercover agents to ride the rails and assess the danger. One of them was a young law student named Melvin Belli.
You saw a part of America at that time that gave fear to everybody in Washington. There's something wrong with the country, and it's so wrong that these people are going to want a revolution.
Strikes and protests were spreading, becoming angrier and more violent. Bill Wheeler was a 19-year-old truck driver when he witnessed a demonstration in New York.
The square was just filled with mobs of people. They were demonstrating, it turned out, for unemployment relief, unemployment benefits. And the police and the firemen were mowing them down with fire hoses. The cops were beating them on the head. It was unbelievable.
Radical movements like the Communist Party were gaining influence and converts. President Hoover misread the danger signals and still did nothing to ease the suffering.
We are convinced that we have overcome major financial crisis. A crisis in severity unparalleled.
For some, the loss of faith was so profound that they simply fled the country. 3 years after Joseph Stalin had predicted the death of capitalism, 100,000 Americans moved to the Soviet Union to help build communism.
There was work for anybody that wanted to work. There was none of this going around with your hat in your hand and tears in your eyes begging for a job. It seemed to be a land of great promise at that time.
This was the only time in history that more people were leaving America than coming to it.